Click. Click. All right, so for those of you that are not on the Discord server, which you really should be, links in the description. Jump up my Discord. You won't regret. Well, actually, you will regret it. You will regret it almost immediately. You will get on the server and you will go, "Oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with these people?" Except for a tiny few of you who will go, "These are my people." You're the guys we want on this. The ones who come in there and go, "Yep, this is my kind of place." Okay, so anyway, let me just clear off my screen here. Now, as you will probably recall, we're going through this book. I'm going through this book, The Complete Guide to Perspective Drawing by Craig Atterbury, and I've been banging my head against this problem with measuring points. Why do measuring points work? And for those of you that, again, aren't on the Discord server, you didn't see me go, "Holy fuck, I figured it out. I got it. I figured it out." Here's the complete coverage of measuring points in this book. God damn it, this chair's a piece of crap. But this is a complete coverage. It is 2 pages. 2 pages of this goddamn book are covering the subject. Okay? And on top of that, the thing that I needed to know, guess what? It is a single goddamn line. Lines that connect to the same point are parallel. Oh my fucking God, that's the thing I was missing. That's what I was missing. That's the one thing somebody needed to say. And that is the core of why any kind of teaching, okay? Any kind of teaching is difficult, because I need to know the answer to this question so I can tell other people the answer to the question. And I have all of the bits and pieces. I have all of the information. It's all laid out right in front of me. But I need that one little bit. If I don't get that one little bit, none of it's useful. But based on just going through these first 6 chapters, I don't think I did anything in particular from chapter 7, did I? Let me check. What is chapter 7? Oh, chapter 7. Yeah, that's complicated. I haven't gotten into that yet. I've kind of sort of looked at it and I went, no, I think I'll get to that a little later. But just to give you some idea, like how much, oh my God, what's in my eye? Just to give you an idea how much shit I'm missing in my art education. I'm on page 98 of this book. And between measuring point geometry for 1 and 2 point perspective and the introduction of 3 point perspective, there are another 150 pages. Like, I knew there was stuff I didn't know. I didn't know that there were 150 pages of stuff I didn't know. That's daunting and humbling, and really kind of reminds me that I don't know shit. But anyway, measuring point geometry. I'm going to explain this. I'm not going to explain this in these terms, because this is that same confusing shit. Everybody goes over the confusing shit, okay? So what I did, I got through all of that, and I came and I did this. You see all of these little blue thingies, okay? All of this stuff, all right? All this stuff that you can see up here. All of that is necessary to do this one little thing. If I come over here and I turn off my guidelines, that's as for this. That's for this one bit right here. This one area. That is a perfect cube in perspective. single point perspective. I'm not proud of that so much. What I'm proud of is that drawing that cube in perspective needed all of this shit. And I did not use a single piece of reference to do it. I have internalized all of the rules and all of the processes to get from a blank sheet of paper to this. Piece of shit chair. God damn it. So I've internalized all of that. So I can just do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through all of this, and I'm going to talk about like all of the bits and pieces and all of the little elements and how it all fits together. And then I'm going to explain the measuring point stuff because it's right at the end. It's at the end of the process, right here, okay? This is where that comes in. That line right there at the bottom left corner. That's where I needed to know how to use a measuring point. And without knowing that, I couldn't make that the right length. So I had to figure out how measuring points work. I had to be, God, what the hell? This piece of shit. This is driving me fucking nuts. Yeah. So we're going to walk through all of this. And I'm going to talk about all of the different little elements and how it was all put together. And here we have, fundamentally, we have the basic idea of, here's my paper, and I've drawn a horizon line. Okay, so this area right here, this is the turn off snap to guidelines. That is the horizon line that I drew. And then what I did was I established the station point down here. And once you've established the station point down here, what you need to do is you establish the cone of vision. And the way you establish that is by drawing an equilateral triangle, which is fairly simple. And you put the point of that triangle, you put one point of the triangle precisely on the station point, and you get the base of it up over top of the horizon, okay? So you can see right down here, we got the point of the triangle at the station point, and we got the base of the triangle up over the horizon. The two sides now cut through a 60-degree section of that horizon line. And if you draw a circle around that, you see this circle right here, which I just pulled out from the center. That circle, which is exactly as wide as this 60-degree segment that comes up from the station point, that's your cone of vision. This is where the distortion of perspective is smallest. Because everything you draw in perspective is distorted because you're trying to reproduce on a two-dimensional plane a three-dimensional scene. And in order to do that, you have to distort the dimensions of the three-dimensional object so that it looks right in two dimensions. Now, when you're working in drafting an architecture, you do the exact opposite, and you distort the perspective so that all of your dimensions are correct, which is beyond the scope of what I'm talking about right now. What the hell, this goddamn piece of shit chair. It's just acting up today. I am not having a good time. I am straight up not having a good time. Not having a good time. I should be wearing sunglasses for that. But once you've got that cone of vision established, all of the focal elements of your composition should be within that cone of vision. Okay? So because I wanted that to be in the cone of vision, obviously, I had to place something somewhere within that. The way you do that is you take the general shape of what you're trying to make, which I did right here, I just kind of drew this little square over here. And I drew this square. And there are three kinds of points on your horizon line. There is at your center of vision when you're doing 1-point perspective. At your center of vision, there is your primary vanishing point. But you also have reference points. And reference points are used to move objects in perspective. If you take a line, when I decided I wanted my cube to be here, I drew a line from this corner of my square all the way up through that point and to the horizon. Now, to project the same shape and size that I had down here at the station point, I took and projected the other corner all the way up. And when I projected that other corner all the way up like that, that gave me the width of my square. And once I had the width of my square, I knew that if I drew a 45-degree line upward from there, that would give me the precise height of my square. Once you've got the, and once I had the height and the width done, man, I'm crapping up this whole image. Once I had the height and the width done, the next thing I had to do was the depth. And in order to do the depth, I first needed to project a ruler that would tell me how long, how wide it needed to be. And to project that ruler, what I did was I took a line from here. Oh, shit. Oh, I see. I accidentally erased a line here. Oh, well, I'll draw another one. What I did was I came up from this side here. Because the depth is supposed to be exactly the same width as exactly the same length as the square, I can take the side of this cube and I can project it upwards. And to do that, let me come over here. Rulers, here's a linear ruler. I'm going to scale turned off. So if I come up from here and I go to that same vanishing point right there, then that crosses over a horizontal line attached. When I draw a guide down here, this gives me a measuring line. And that measuring line right here that line right there is exactly the correct length for this side. But in order to draw that line, I had to measure exactly where it went in perspective. And the way you do that is, you see this circle right here? You place your measuring point exactly the same distance from the vanishing point as your station point. So I pull the circle where the center's on the vanishing point, the edge is on the station point. And that point on the horizon, that's my measuring line. So I pulled this guide here from the measuring line over to where this guideline, this measuring line, crossed this projection line to the reference point. That's a reference point, and that's a reference point. So where those crossed, okay, when I cross that, up here you can see it crosses directly through that corner. That's the correct foreshortened length for that side, going to the vanishing point. So I went from here to the vanishing point, and from here to the vanishing point, and here from here to the vanishing point. I plotted the length of this one side and drew that. Then I could come vertically up to here. That gave me the length of that side, and horizontally across here gave me the length of that side. And all of that ended up perfectly measured. So if we pull all of that various stuff that we just put in, and then we turn off the guidelines, you can see that, then I've still got that one line that I drew. Still got a couple lines that I drew. But you can see that what we've got here is a perfectly perspective drawn cube. Just right in there. And it's all guaranteed accurate because all of the various steps were followed. Now, the reason you don't see people follow these steps usually is because they're doing it in their head. They don't have to be 100% precise. It's rare that you need to draw a perfect cube. And after you've drawn like 30 perfect cubes, it's reasonably simple to just eyeball it. Precise dimensions are not generally something that you need a lot of. But if you do need them, you have got the process to do that. And that process is useful. And you can use that process to do all kinds of stuff. But the important thing about the measuring line, why does the measuring line work? It works because the lines are parallel. And what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to create a brand new image so I could show you this. There's some basic things about parallel lines. I'm going to draw down two lines. If two lines are parallel, they're the same distance apart all the way along their length. The distance here is the same as the distance here. That's the same as the distance here, the same as the distance here, and the same as the distance here, okay? And because those distances are the same all the way along, then that means if a line crosses both of those parallel lines, it's going to cross at the same angle here, we'll call that angle theta, as it crosses it here. And opposite angles, where it crosses the line, those are the same. So that's also angle theta right there. And just for completeness, this angle over here is 180 degrees minus theta. And the opposite angle is exactly the same, 180 minus theta. And these match, 180 minus theta, 180 minus, that's 0, that one's theta. Okay. So that's how parallel lines fit together on this, okay? And if we get rid of all of that stuff, now we can pull in a perpendicular line and we can talk about how things relate to this. If you cross a perpendicular line, and a perpendicular line is just crossing another line at exactly 90 degrees, which, you know, because they're parallel lines, if it's crossing here at 90, it's crossing here at 90, which means that's 90. That's 90, and that's 90. And then these are 180 minus 90, which is 90. And these are the same. So all of them are 90, okay? Just basic principles. If you draw a line that crosses a pair of lines that are perpendicular, first of all, you know this is 90, okay? Second, you know this angle right here plus this angle right here. We'll call this theta, and this is 90 minus theta. These two angles always add up to 90 degrees. And because those angles always add up to 90 degrees, you can typically figure out from one of them what the other one is. You can always figure out from one of them what the other one is. And there's also a magic number, and that magic number is that magic number is 45. Okay, so I'm going to draw a quick ruler, and I'll hold down the shift line, and I'm going to hold it down to 45. Now, the reason this is magic is because that's 90 degrees. Fucking snap. That's 45 degrees. That's 45 degrees. Because these angles match, these sides are the same length. The side opposite an angle is going to be the same length as the side opposite the same angle in any triangle. So what we have here is an isosceles triangle. And because it's an isosceles triangle, and we know this side is the same as this side, and that's a different side, that's necessarily a longer or shorter side, it's never the same. Because of that series of rules, what this means is, if you go from your station point, right here, and we do a 45-degree angle up here. Now, here's your vanishing point, and here's your station point. And what we've just done over here is the measuring point. Now, if I draw anything that goes to these vanishing points, let me get rid of that real quick. Okay. Now, if I draw any line to this point, it's parallel to every other line to that point. All of the lines that go to this point are parallel. They don't look parallel because the image is distorted. If you looked at this from above, you would see this. But because you're looking across it, because you're looking at it in perspective, you're seeing a slightly different thing. Notice when you look at this head on, when you look at this book head on, okay, you can see that all the lines of text are parallel. But if you tilt it, you can see that now the lines of text seem to be angled. And the more you tilt it, the more angled they appear to be. And because these lines appear angled, they converge to a vanishing point off into the distance, okay? And that's what you're simulating when you draw in perspective. So when you draw to this vanishing point, you're drawing a line that is parallel to this one. And when you draw from the measuring point, you draw a line that goes to the measuring point, you've drawn a line that's parallel to this one. And if you have a line that is parallel to this, and a line that is parallel to this, and then you add another line that's parallel to this, okay? Because the angles are the same, because these two lines meet at a 45-degree angle, that angle is the same angle. It doesn't look like the same angle. And the reason it doesn't look like the same angle is because everything's distorted from perspective. If you looked at this from above, what you would actually have here is you would have two parallel lines, and then you would have two other parallel lines intersecting at 45 degrees. So because these lines are intersecting at 45 degrees, okay? Because we've got a 45-degree intersection here. If we pull down a parallel line here, the parallel line here is giving us another 45-degree angle there. Just like it would give us a 45-degree angle here. And because the angles match, the sides match. I don't think I'm explaining this very well. Oh dear, I don't think I'm explaining this very well at all. But this triangle here, let's use different colors. That might help. Let's come over here and we'll go, okay, in blue. Here's the black color. Sketch. Brown. Guide layer, the ruler layer. Yes, it is. Everything's on the ruler layer. So I'm an idiot. Okay. So if we come over here to flat color, you can see right here that, you can see right here, we're going to go in blue. this triangle right here is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which means this side and this side are the same length. This one is a different length. Now, because this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle, if I draw a line here, do that in red. If I draw a line here, this line is parallel to that line, okay? And if I draw another line here, this line is parallel to this line, and this line is parallel to this line, okay? And because those two lines are parallel, they're intersecting at the same angle, which means even though that does not look like a 45-degree angle, it is a 45-degree angle. And because it's a 45-degree angle, we know that this line and this line are the same length. And if we pull this line down, let me get rid of all of that. If we pull a line down over here, and we pull a line down over here from the measuring point, okay? And then we have this line right here, okay? We know that this side and, not that side, we know that this side and this side are the same length, okay? And because we know they're the same length, that means however long this is, which we can measure, that's how long that is, only in perspective. It's perspective distorted. It looks shorter than it actually is, but because of the angles, because the angles are the same, we know that the lengths are the same. This is really hard to explain. I don't know that I'm doing a good job. I've spent all week trying to think of a way to easily explain this, and I have honestly never come up with a good way to explain it, okay? It's just that because the lines are parallel, like if we have 3 lines there, those 3 lines from above looks like this. If we then have 3 lines there, those 3 lines from above appear to be at a 45-degree angle, and they're all parallel, and only one of them intersects that one line. Well, that one intersects down near the end. But this is what you'd see from above. When you're looking at this in perspective, as you're looking along the ground plane, if you looked from above, you would see this. And you're duplicating that distortion. And even though this triangle is distorted, you could see from this that that would be a 45-degree, 45, that would be a 45, 90, 45, 45, 90 triangle. That would be a 45, 90, 45 triangle. This would be a 45, 45, 90 triangle. If we extended this line out and we pulled that out over there, okay, we would know that this line and this line are the same width, or the same length. And the reason that we know they're the same length is that they have to be. There's no choice but for them to be the same length. They have to be the same length because the angles are the same. And I really don't think I'm explaining this very well. But that was the big thing. That's what really broke this problem for me, was these 2 lines are parallel. The distance between them is the same all the way along them. And because the distance between them is the same all the way along them, that means that the angle it forms with this, line is always 45 degrees. The angle it forms with any line that goes there is always 45 degrees. This looks like it's more than 45 degrees, but it's still 45 degrees. This looks like it's less than 45 degrees. This also looks like it's more than 45 degrees, actually. but it's exactly 45 degrees because the lines are parallel. It's the same thing here. You've got a distorted angle here, but that's 45 degrees. The angle's distorted, but this is 45 degrees. And up here, when we draw across like this angle is distorted, but it's 90 degrees. It's always 90 degrees all the way down along. This angle right here is 90 degrees. This angle right here is not distorted, and it's exactly 90 degrees. You can see it's 90 degrees there. So any line that comes out from there, also 90 degrees. Line that comes out there, 90 degrees. Line that comes out way over here, 90 degrees. They're all parallel. And because these angles are all 90 degrees, which is undoubtedly baking your head, all of the lines that come down out of here, they're all crossing this line at a 45-degree angle. Because these are also parallel. And if you have parallel lines going at 45 degrees and parallel lines going at 0 degrees, they're always crossing at 45 degrees. That's the only way it can happen. That's the only way it can ever happen. Okay, yeah. Avis got himself a sombrero, apparently. That's amusing. Seriously, you need to be on our Discord server. It's a blast. What was that? Okay. I had to switch windows, so that's why my desktop popped up there. Obviously, I have a Higurashi desktop. What else would I have? But, where was I? Oh, yeah. So, the whole parallel lines thing. All of these lines are parallel. All of these lines are parallel because these lines cross at 45 degrees at the station point. That's where they cross everywhere. The station point is where nothing's distorted, okay? Angles at the station point are true. They're always true, okay? Angles at the measuring point are also true. That's how you draw inclines. When you go, okay, I want to draw a 30-degree angle upward. I want to draw something that's angled upward 30 degrees. Well, you're going to use a different horizon line. That's the horizon line for things that are angled. And then when you've got an object that has an angled top at 30 degrees, that angled top doesn't go to this. Doesn't go to this vanishing point. It goes to that vanishing point. And that gives you your angled top, which just looks, it looks like you fucked everything up, is what it looks like. But yeah, that's the whole measuring point thing, is just, it's all about these lines being parallel. Because the lines are parallel, because they are parallel even though they don't look it, coming out of the same vanishing point, everything is parallel. So all of these three lines, cross all three of these lines at a 45-degree angle. That angle right there, that one there, that one there, they are all 45-degree angles. And because they're 45-degree angles, then you know that because this is a 45-degree angle and you pull a horizon line down, you also know the horizon intersects all of these at a 45-degree angle. So you know these are the same size. These two sides are the same size. And that's just kind of mind-blowing, really. And there are a couple of ways that you can do this, because on the one hand, you can use that to figure out how long the line needs to be, but on the other, you can use it to figure out how long the line actually is. This isn't a cube because that's much longer than the side. To be a cube, it would need to have a much shorter side. Need to be more like that. Or you could figure out all by yourself. You go, okay, that would be right about there. And then you could go from that. But yeah, that was frustrating. That was a lot of work to come up with that. Let's see here. There was a lot of stuff that I worked on all week, and yeah. So let's get rid of some of it. So trash the rule. And with the guide, trash the guide. I learned a lot of stuff about using guides in this. Like one of the things I learned was you can drag out a couple of guides, okay? And then this little guide icon over here in your layers panel, you can take that guide icon and you can drag it to any layer you want. And now it's on the sketch layer. If I hide the sketch layer, everything gets hidden with it. There's nothing actually on the guide layer now. So I can pull out my guides and pull out brand new guides, and these automatically go onto the guide layer, but I can move them anywhere that I want. I can move them down here. I can move these onto the background layer, and having moved them onto the background layer, I can then merge that down into the guide layer, or I can create a new layer and just drag my guides out and onto that. And then when I drag new guides, they go into this brand new layer, and I can turn off these guides, keep those guides. Once I've done this, I can again create a new layer. I can drag the guides off onto that layer, and then those can be hidden. This is really useful. I really got so much mileage out of that, being able to put the guides for something that I'm doing in the exact same place. Now there is a weirdness here, and that weirdness is if you have like 2 guidelines on this layer and 4 guidelines on this layer, you see what I'm turning off here. I got those lines on this layer. I got those lines on this layer. Now, if you drag your guidelines on top of another layer's guidelines, the other layer's guidelines just go away. These lines move to the new layer, but the old guidelines are just gone. You can use undo to get them back, but if you're zoomed in, that can be kind of a mess. So you want to be careful with that. I don't know what good this check mark is. I can check or uncheck the guides, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. But yeah, we've got the guides over here, and drawing those guides is useful. Drawing the rulers is helpful. And I come over here to the rulers pane. This linear ruler is great. You can shift to hold it to 45-degree increments, which is great in single point perspective. That's another thing I figured out this week. Single point perspective isn't real. Single point perspective is just 3-point perspective with a whole bunch of stuff held rigid, okay? And what's held rigid is when you're working in single point perspective, they go, single point perspective, everything's in 90 degrees. Everything's a cuboid, which is to say it's a box. Okay, it's a box as in every side is flat and all of the angles are 90 degrees because 90-degree angles are easy to work with. So in single point perspective, you can draw a cuboid like this, or you can rotate it around that central axis like this. But as soon as you rotate it this way, now you got 2-point perspective. Well, you always had 2-point perspective. It's just that in this one, your second point was at 90 degrees, so it was an infinite distance away to the side. When you turn it, now you've got your vanishing points are over here and over here, which makes matters worse because then when you do 3-point perspective and you turn it up like this, now you got a vanishing point up here and a vanishing point down here. And at this point, you're undoubtedly going, but wait, How do those vanishing points go to my horizon? That's the neat part. They don't. Just like your vanishing point isn't in the middle when you have 2-point perspective, your horizon isn't in the middle when you have 3-point perspective. You have a theoretically infinite number of vanishing points along the horizon and horizon lines moving up and down the field of vision. And that is going to make things really, really complex, especially because when you're doing the maths for this and you're simulating, okay, here's where we need the station point to be, you're actually projecting multiple station points depending on which axis you're working in. But they're all the same station point. They're just rotated 90 degrees in different directions. If you folded the station points out 90 degrees, they would all go to the same place. But you can't, because then they wouldn't be on the paper. They would be behind you. They would be cutting out of your paper instead of actually on the paper, which is a mess. There's so much complexity to this. It's just, I mean, if you had told me there was a 500-page book on nothing but perspective, I would have just gone, why? Holy crap, there's so much stuff going on. And actually understanding all of it is really like a big hurdle. It's, you can follow the recipes and you can follow the instructions and you can get the results. But when you're following those recipes and instructions, not understanding what you're doing, you can't extrapolate from that. You can't extrapolate from that, you know, we've got our measuring point over here. It's like I come from my station point right here, and I just go, okay. So here's my measuring point. I go to the brush, go to another layer. I go, here's my measuring point. Here's my vanishing point. And here's my station point. You got your 3 points right there, okay? And understanding how those fit together is a key to understanding how a lot of other stuff fits together. Because at the horizon here, at your measuring point, and at the station point, angles are true. And because the angles are true, when you go, okay, I want to draw an incline, you draw your incline from here and you go, okay, 30-degree incline. That gives you your new horizon. And that new horizon also gives you, and this is lots of fun, that also gives you a new measuring point. And that new measuring point is, again, just as far away as the station point. And a 45-degree line will give you that in single point perspective. It's a magic number in single point perspective. But as soon as you get into 2-point perspective, things start to get funky. And that's the fun part, is when things really start getting funky. So if I'm drawing something here and I just go, okay, here's the front and here's the side, and the top of it is angled at 30 degrees. So the top of it is angled like that. And that's clearly not a proper cube in perspective, but that's how a 30-degree angled top would look on the cube, if the top of it is angled 30 degrees. And if you did something like, you say, this is important if you're drawing, say, a chest that is partway open. And when you're drawing something like that, you're going to put it in 2-point perspective. So you're going to go to vanishing points that are at separate points on the horizon over here. And you're going to cut that off at the appropriate lengths, which you can measure using your measuring point. and then you'll measure the angle of where your horizon line goes from the same measuring point. And you'll measure that upward to 30 degrees, and you'll figure that out, and then everything will fit together and it will look proper, and you'll do an appropriate piece of work. You'll be able to draw the chest in perspective with the angled chest open, with the angled chest lid open, and it will look right. And that's really important, because if stuff doesn't look right, people start shaking their head and going, that guy's not a very good artist. So this perspective stuff, this is really important. And if I'm going to be doing backgrounds, this is going to start being exceptionally important. And I need backgrounds. I need like 10 backgrounds. This first game, I'm going to need 10 more the second game. And they're going to be very different. Also, the second game is going to be pixel art, so I've got to figure out how to compile a sprite. And this chair has gradually sunk down on me again, which is annoying as hell. I hate that shit, but what can you do? And I'm actually kind of sitting here going, I don't think I did a very good job on this. I did not do a very good job explaining this stuff. I don't know. I think if you have questions, leave them in the comments. And do a little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notify icon, all of that crap. Jump up my Discord, link's in the description. And yeah, I'm kind of sitting here going, I did not do a very good job on this stream, but you know, I did okay. This is okay. I don't feel like I explained this very well, but I don't know. Maybe I did a better job than I think. I tried to explain it like 3 or 4 different ways. I don't think I had very good examples. I don't know. Let's kind of jump back here. Let's jump back to the actual pictures here, and it's showing you the basic idea. Because these are parallel, you know, because these are parallel, we know that these two sides here are the same length. They have to be, because these two sides are the same length. And if the angles of the triangle are the same, which they have to be, because that's how parallel lines work, then those two lines have to still be the same length. We don't know what that length is, but they are definitely the same length. And because the horizontal line isn't foreshortened, because horizontal and vertical lines are not foreshortened at that particular in that particular way, then yeah, you can use them to determine how long things are. I don't know. I don't think I've done a very good job explaining this. If I come up with a better way to do it, I'll go over this again next week. The thing I definitely want to go over next week is the 1 and 2 point perspective thing, and how to get set up with all of the guidelines and whatnot to work on your perspective. Because all of this stuff, all of these guidelines that you make to help your perspective, as you get farther along and you get more and more comfortable working with the ideas, you're going to do all of that stuff in your head, but you can't do it in your head until you've done it a few hundred times on paper. If you do it by hand and you force yourself to do it by hand over and over and over again, that's how you internalize it. That's how you make it work. That's how you can initially pull it out of your head and do it from scratch, and then later just like not do it at all, because you can see it in your head. You just look at things and you go, okay, I know that my station point has to be down here because that's what I want my focal point to be, right there. And you just kind of gradually put that together. Anyway, I'll talk about that next week. I don't know. I wish I had done a better job explaining this tonight. I spent most of the week trying to come up with a good way to explain it, and I thought it's parallel lines and triangles was the right way to go about that. I don't know if it was or not. But, yeah, that's, yeah. Anyway, that's where things are. Okay, bye.